Hi, and welcome to an online class by Maker Beauty. That would be me, the voice behind the video. I'm going to show you different tips and tricks on how to set up your design space project for cutting your petals. And without any further ado, let's begin. So I'm going to start off with a brand new project. I'm going to click on my projects and open up a new one. And I'm going to bring it in one of my petals. I'm gonna drill down to my Google Drive where I keep all my stuff. And yes, in case you're wondering, do I have that many templates? Yes, indeed I do. I'm going to work with template number 3. It gets pulled into the design space. I'm gonna save it. And I'm gonna insert the image and pull that into my project. So the very first thing I do is I set the size of the petal for the flower that I want it to be. So the way you calculate, right, is that if you want to have a medium-sized flower, and a medium-sized flower is typically anywhere between 8 to 12 inches, and then you need to have your petals to be at least 4 inches height, because you're going to have your base to be 4 inches as well. So you have 4 inches petal on one side, 4 inches petal on the other side, and your base is another 4 inches, right? Which in total will give you 12 inches. I would probably go a little bit more on the bigger side just to give myself more space to work with, and I would set my petal and my base to be 5 inches. Essentially what I mean is that your flower is going to look like something like this. Here's your petal, here's your base, and let's just duplicate it. We're gonna flip it. And this is how you calculate the final size of your flower. You take into consideration that you have petal on each side, so you add that, and your base, right? Okay, so I hope that makes a little bit more sense by what I'm talking about with regards to how you need to calculate your measurements. In any case, for the purpose of this video, I am going for medium-sized petal, and I wanted to, and I'm working with the 8 by 5, 8.5 by 11 pages paper, right? So the first thing I do is I typically unlock the sizing, and I will set my width to be 3.5 and my height to be 5. That typical to, a good starting point. It's for most of the petals that are not too thick or not too thin on the bottom. That's a pretty good measurement to start with, right? So I'm going to lock it in and just move it aside. So when I make my subsequent petals, whether I want them to be small or large, extra large, I don't set the size of the petal per individual petal, right? What you should do is you should duplicate this petal and adjust the size as you need by changing the height only. What that will allow you to do is that it will retain the sizing and the proportion in correlation and in integrity relevant to your other petals. So let's say that I want this to be my large petal, and this one I want it to be my medium petal. And typically, I think reducing by 0.5 inches is a good starting point. For some of the petals, right, you probably want it to be a little bit more of a dramatic look, but by and large, most of the petals, you don't want to reduce it like by a whole inch or again, it really depends on what look you're going for. So what now is that I made the duplicate of the first petal that I adjust my size for. I'm on this petal, and all I'm going to do is adjust the height. So I'm going to reduce it to 4.5. It will automatically adjust the width for me. So I have my medium size petal. I still need my small petal. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to duplicate of my medium petal. I'm going to come here and I'm going to reduce it down to 4 inches. Sometimes in order to get a visual, what I will do is I'll change each petal in a different color and I will stack them up to give myself a visual of whether or not this is a good reduction. And from what I can see, this is pretty good. Okay, so I have my petals done and ready. Now I want to set them up for my mat. This is a fairly easy and straightforward petal to work with. I'm going to put this right next to each other. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to align them on the top. The reason to that is because they're probably slightly off, right? And this will help me. See, did you see how my red one just moved up? What that will do is it will allow me to maximize all of my space. You can even move this a little bit closer to the black one. Now I'm going to bring this one up here. I'm going to select all of them. And I see that I'm actually looking pretty good, right? My paper is 8.5 by 11, and I see that right now with the petals that I have, my height is 8.5, which is well within the 11 inches range, and my width is looking pretty good too. But here's a couple of things, right? Paper is not cheap, even if you buy it on sale. And I have a lot of real estate that is being underutilized. So what I typically do is that I will fill up every single available inch with something. So what I'm going to do is I'm actually going to probably flip this and see if doing that ends up giving me a little bit more space. Not really. The way I had it was the best, so I'm just going to do undo, undo. Okay. So the way I utilize the real estate space is two ways. One is I will pull in my layered flowers. So let's go and see what I have. Da, 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 da. Okay, this one looks pretty good. So I'm going to insert that. It looks pretty funny because I was exporting an SVG file from another application, and even though I flattened it and fused it together, the Cricut doesn't read the welding so well, I guess. In any case, I'm going to weld it so it became one, and I can see that I have a single cut line, so I'm actually going to go into contour and fix it up. Okay, the contour doesn't let me go in, so I'm just going to take a shape and band-aid it. Just going to move it a little bit. Okay, I'm going to weld it, and now it's looking much, much better. So for my layered flowers, right, I mean, I typically do them like the bottom one, maybe like 4 inches, and I'm able to reduce it anywhere between, again, either 0.5 or 0.75 inches. So in this case, let's see what happens if I try to squeeze in 4-inch petal in here. I can tell you right away that it's going to be pretty big on my, oh, no, actually it's still looking good. Well, it's still looking great, and I see that I still have a little bit more room to go. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to group it, and I'm going to move it a little bit more to the center. I'm going to ungroup it, and I'm actually going to change the position of my petals. I'm going to put this one down. And I'm going to see what ends up happening with the whiz. And my whiz is looking pretty good, right? Now you might ask me, well, why are you doing this? Like, why does it make sense? It makes sense because depends on how you position your petal, your real estate space will open up more, so to speak. Oh, I did not mean to do it to the right, so I'm going to undo this. And I'm going to align it on the top. My petal's touching a little bit too close. I'm going to move it out. And I'm also going to adjust this too to make sure that I align them to the right. Okay. All right. So you might wonder, right? Like, why am I doing this? Well, the reason I'm doing it now that I've moved and reshuffled the things around, right? I have a lot more real estate space open up myself. I am still, you know, very well within the limits for my width, and I definitely have more inches now going down to my height, because I don't know if you saw it, you might have to like rewind a couple minutes and look back, but the way I've had my petals before, my height was already at 9 point something inches, right? But now, because I've moved stuff around, I have more. So what I can do is I can reduce this down to 3 inches, and I can squeeze in one more flower. Do you see how I'm still look pretty good? I could actually go back and increase the size, and I'll still be quite okay, and I still have a lot of paper left. Yep, I'm definitely doing okay. I can see that I have all this real estate space available to me. So what I can do is I can bring the small petal down. Let me just make sure that I'm not growing up. Still looking pretty good. And I'm going to take this one. I'm going to duplicate it, and that will become my small petal. Now for my small flowers, like I eye a lot of things, only because, you know, you don't have to be as strict with the sizing. But, you know, as you just learn your way around the flowers, and you bought it, you know, a petal of somebody, if they have specific directions on the sizing, you should definitely follow that. The reason to that is, you know, if you're looking to get it to look a certain, you know, way, you have to adhere to what the instructions say in order to arrive to the end product that you saw it, you know, on a sale page. All right, so let me now again select everything. I'm looking good, but I see that I still have a lot of space. So now, you know, the options you have is that I don't know if you guys ever seen, you know, it's like, but the hydrea balls, you know, like look very, very good. I'm gonna actually Google it for you so you can see what I'm talking about. And I'm sorry if my spelling is terrible. My spelling skills are not the best. Like I can't exactly like spell it very well. So let's get some of the images. This exactly what I'm talking about. These are very tiny flowers, right? And you don't really need them to be like anything big. You only need them to have, I don't know, like not even an inch, maybe actually inch and a half would be good space for us, but you certainly have a real estate space in here, right? So that's what I typically do. I will use up the space for the, for what I call hydrea balls, but and I know that hydrea has like 4 petals, but you don't have to stick to 4 petals. You can make it like 6 or however many to. I mean, you could even probably like do the hydrea balls even with this flower. You just reduce it so much smaller, right? And you just fill it up all the empty space with it. Otherwise, it's just a lot of paper waste. Okay, so now we need to highlight all of this. And we need to attach it. The reason to that is because if you don't attach it, and let me show you what happens if you don't attach it. I'm just going to undo it for now. Let's go ahead and we decide that we want to make it. Well, first I should probably change everything to the same color. So let me select everything and it's selected one color. But it's still not attached, right? You know what? I will even group it for you. So watch this. We click on Make It. Now I had everything laid out very beautifully, right? But lo and behold, it doesn't respect any of the positions that I've had, and instead it utilized the design space logic, and it put its own spin on things. Okay, well, let's try to change the paper size, and this is the size that I'm working with, right? So I click on Letter. Oh, and look at it. You know, on the canvas, I managed to squeeze everything in one page, but the design space, you know, doesn't think that it has enough real estate space. It actually spread it over 2 pages, which is even more waste. That's why many times, you know, like I'll be watching Instagram videos, and like people will print 2 petals on this huge chunk of paper, and I'll be like, oh my god, that's so much waste. In any case, what I wanted to demonstrate was that even if you group something, right, grouping just holds it together. That does not translate to attach it, and the attach is what you know, holds it, and it doesn't it attaches together so that when you need to make it, you know, it stays as one whole thing. Okay, so we're gonna do attach, and now when we go to make it, it will keep everything exactly how I had it on a canvas. Now, because I'm very well within the size that I have for my paper, I'm not even gonna bother with changing the material size. I'll just keep it at 12, and then I will change the project copies to 6, and the reason to that is because you have 3 layers that you're working with, and it's a 6 layers, I mean 6 petals for each layer. That's why you need 6. Okay, so one thing I wanted to tell you about my flowers and my petals is that because of the sizing that I set it up, I don't really need to have a medium-sized petal. What I mean by that is this. Let me detach everything, and I'm going to ungroup it as well. I'm just going to get rid of those flowers. Okay, so let me just rotate everything straight. This one is rotated good. Okay, so right now what I have is the essentially large, medium, and small with some of my petals, not all of them, right, but some of them. I don't really need to worry about the medium at all. I treat my large for large as well as for my medium. So what I would end up doing is that I would just duplicate it and not change the size at all. I would just leave it as is. and I would still I would just calculate the size for my small one, and I would still calculate as if I'm reducing everything by 0.5 inches, and so my small would be reduced by 1 inch. I have a video on how I put the flower together, and if you watch that video, I go into the details on what I mean by treating my large petals same, for both my large and a medium size. So that's just something that I wanted to bring out. You certainly don't have to follow that at all. I find it easier because just for the assembly purposes, with some of the petals, like the reduction between the medium and the large is so tiny, I can get confused between, then the grab of the large one and treat it as a medium. And so with some of the flowers, I found it easier to just have majority of the petals to be the same size, and then I just have small, because the reduction, like the 1 inch reduction is much more pronounced than 0.5. Any case, I hope that was useful for you. Actually, before I go, a big thing is that you must always, 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 always save your project. And that's probably something we should have done it, from the very start, because design space can be a little funky and it can crush on you. Also, unlike Microsoft Word products, for example, it does not auto-save. What that means is that as you make changes, make sure you keep hitting on that save button. That's to ensure that should software crash on you unexpectedly, you have your project saved as much as you can, so you don't have to redo those changes. And if you're looking for suggestions on how to organize files and keep a track of your projects in design space, because it doesn't have good folder logic, I try to keep the name of my template and a project name the same. So I would probably call this template 3 medium size 8.5 by 11 paper, and I will probably put it in with layered flower. That helps me that if I need to recreate this, it's here. I don't have to struggle remembering and am I looking at the template 3 medium size, the 12 by 12 inch paper, or is it 8 by 5, and so on and so forth. So this is how I utilize the naming of our project, but again, do whatever works for you. In any case, thank you watching this video. I hope you enjoyed it. Please visit me on my Facebook page, visit me on my Instagram, and of course consider purchasing my Cricut classes on how to use the lovely shapes and design space to create your own petal. All the best.